Willow has certainly grown into a rising star as of late, especially with her skill tree being added. For a month you would end up seeing so many videos of her being a powerhouse, tag teaming with Bernie, taking out the world's bosses with ease. However, trying to integrate that type of play can be difficult. Watching something happen is different from performing. If you're not careful, you'll end up getting burnt, or burning others. Playing as Willow really is just like playing with fire. Willow's playstyle was always kinda dangerous. Before, in order to maximize her, the player had to constantly be insane. And in order to use fire, the player had to be careful that everything doesn't just turn to ashes. But now with her update, Willow's kit had made her playstyle easier to access, as well as giving her a few more new toys to play with. But even with all these new bells and whistles, Willow is still mostly the same. To burn hot, you need lots of fuel, and to Willow, everything is fuel. Everything can be burned. This tree, this bush, this pig, all of it can burn, or not, if you don't want them to be. When you think of Willow, you think of two things: a sassy personality and fire. Willow originally started off as a tutorial character for people who had trouble with darkness. Now and together, she has evolved into more of a crowd control character with the capability of doing some AoE burst damage. Willow has changed to be able to have access to her own fire, one that won't burn the surroundings and also protects item drops. Can't really say the same for Meat though. Bernie also got some more tank ability, allowing him to be more useful in general. With Willow and Bernie combined, you can really roast a lot of the creatures in the game. Most people are interested in her new toys and fancy spells, but where Willow really shines is the basic nature of fire. The way fire works is simple. The bigger the fire, the more it does. But if you want to know more about fire, I have a whole video that talks about every single fire and how they work. So you can check that out, linked in the iCard and down below. Willow's fire is special because she can modify how her fires work. They can be made to not spread, to do more damage, and last longer thanks to her skill tree. However, the duration only applies to lighting mobs on fire, not to structures or burnables. A lot of the creatures in the game when lit on fire panic. They'll run around and do nothing until the fire is extinguished. This would normally last only a few seconds, but with Willow, this lasts for much longer. You can go into an infested core with only her lighter and be able to hold your own against all the spiders. That's how strong the fire's crowd control ability is. With her burn duration perk, mobs' burn time increases by a multiple of 3. Small fire mobs go from 6 seconds to 18 seconds, medium fire go from 8 to 24, and large fire mobs go from 10 to 30. The damage each mob takes from fire varies on the size of the mob, and also depends on what is used to ignite the mob. The item that does the lowest fire damage for Willow is actually the fire staff. Normally the fire staff does bonus damage, but sadly it does not stack with Willow's fire damage bonus, so it ends up being the worst performing fire damage she can apply. Second goes to torch, lighter, dart, and scale mail applications of fire. Her fire cast or combust does the most fire tick damage. Small mobs can take like 60 damage for the whole duration, medium mobs take around 160 damage for the whole duration, and some large mobs can end up doing around 300 damage for the entire duration. But in reality, the damage is so small it's not worth focusing on. It's more the crowd control ability of fire where it's most special. If you manage to get fire to stack on top of each other though, you can do a decent amount of damage. Stacking a bunch of fires on top of each other creates a big damage aura. Players can do this too, but Willow gets bonus damage for this. Normally a fire like this can reach 120 damage per second, but with Willow it can reach 180 damage per second. Scale mail is also an interesting tool for Willow too. I found that the fire that is applied follows Willow's perks, making creatures burn for longer. So in a pinch when you can't cast spells, scale mail is a decent alternative. That's about it for fire, but now it's time to talk about the big bear. Previously, I always kinda thought Bernie was kind of hard to use because Willow had to stay under 15% sanity in order to use him. And since Willow had a pretty small maximum sanity, killing one nightmare could take you out of being insane, leaving Willow vulnerable of being swarmed. But now thanks to the skill tree, Bernie becomes more consistent within Willow's playstyle. You can use him for longer without putting yourself into danger. Many of Bernie's perks add a pretty nice quality of life to him. One that most people say are not worth it are the regen upgrades. But I say they're pretty great. Why people dislike it is because while Bernie is active, shadows will constantly spawn and chip away at his HP. It is this constant harassment why people don't believe that regen is a good perk. But I say it's because of this constant harassment why regen is such a great perk. If you have Bernie at maximum tank with the lunar affiliation, he will only last around 40 interactions with the crawling horror before dying. But if Bernie has regen, that 40 ends up being 160. You can just straight up sit around and Bernie will casually farm fuel for you forever, without ever needing to interact with the nightmares. In addition, Bernie is also a hell of a tank, especially when he gets his affiliation. Bernie ends up getting planar entity protection, giving him passive damage resistance, the minimum being at least 20%, and a maximum of 91%. This means that with his health upgrade and the planar protection, his max health will be around 260. But with the defense it'll go up at least to 3250. And he will have more health based off of what he is fighting. Bernie can tank 24,000 damage worth of gunpowder and still be fine. It is the combination of Willow and Bernie that makes Willow rather strong now. Previously they would get overwhelmed by entities, even when they were trying to use their powers together. But now they feel like they're really strong early game powerhouse. Bernie capturing enemies' attentions, while Willow is able to do strong AoE or just cripple them all with fire. Or she can let Bernie take the reins and have him retaliate against a group of enemies. Willow and Bernie can take on more things earlier in the game than most survivors, but that causes them to burn out kinda quickly. Willow shows off all her cards early on. She is really fun and fast paced, but maybe not the best for long-term worlds. She is still good late game, but she doesn't really get any better than where she started. Willow provides a lot of different ways for the player to play. If you like to be more of an active player, you can go with her spells. If you want a more passive style, Bernie is pretty great. She is good with bosses, she's good against groups, she can provide some support to the team. She is a nightmare fuel farming machine. I think she's just a good general use character. There are a few problems I had with her though. Maybe it's just because I'm bad at playing the game, or it's something else, but I kind of felt like it was cumbersome to try and cast her spells. Spells are only casted using the mouse actions. You need to select a spell by clicking and click again to cast it. So there was many times where I selected a spell but never actually casted it because I didn't press the right button. I think making it possible to cast spells using spacebar after a spell is selected would make life so much easier for Willow mains. Another button problem I had was calming Bernie. You can calm Bernie down by right clicking him. This is great. This saves so much trouble Bernie causes. Like how he doesn't travel with the player if you take a wormhole. Or how sometimes while collecting resources from farming, Bernie would accidentally be calmed by holding spacebar near him. This was annoying. As for Willow, she does have some downsides, especially when it comes to winter. Winter comes as a surprise to Willow's because Willow has a negative insulation, making clothing less useful for her. She also takes more damage from freezing than other characters. Many of these problems are just small things here and there that you will have to deal with playing as Willow. But Willow is actually really great at handling what the game throws at you. But that is if she's alone. Sometimes in a group setting, her overzealous use of fire may cause more harm to her fellow survivors. It's certainly something to look out for. But while alone, a Willow is constantly moving. A flame constantly seeking fuel. Willow gives way more freedom of movement, the freedom to be insane, and freedom just to do whatever. You see something, you set it on fire, making Willow the true pyromaniac. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed that. That is Willow here and done. She was an interesting character to play. A little hard for me early on because I just didn't really know what I was wanting to do, but fun nonetheless. I hope you all enjoyed. Until next time, this has been Tara, and take care.